What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Ball to Bold series. As you know, the Ball to Bold series is an opportunity for Come Home to bring men together to talk about the ups and downs of their hair loss journey, the goods and bads. And today I have a special guest, Curt. Curt is one of my classmates here at the Raw School of Business. And when we first were actually in the same section, and we first met immediately, I knew Curt would be an exceptional guest on the Ball to Bold episode, because you can guess why, clearly. So me and Curt were talking a bit earlier, and Curt told me he actually came home in 2014. So it's been about 6 to 7 years since he's been rocking the ball cut, but clearly he's learned a few things along the way. Curt, can you introduce yourself to the people? Give them your first and last name, where you're from, favorite hobby, some fun facts, something like that.
Yeah, my pleasure, Kenny. Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yeah, so my name is Curt Ganeles. I grew up in the Boston area in a town called Sudbury specifically. Currently, as Kenny mentioned, just graduating from the Ross School of Business here at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. And, a little bit about myself. I am 31 years old. And fun fact, am a meteorology undergraduate major. So my background is in weather of all things, which is not too common, but hey, certainly no problem small talking about the weather when it comes down to it.
Nice. Curt, you're from Boston. Let me ask you a question here. Did you grow up being a big Celtics fan, Red Sox fan? How'd that work?
Hey, gotta love the hometown teams, right? I would say probably of all those teams, spent the most time watching the Red Sox. Certainly, I remember I was in high school and they won in 2004, broke the curse. That was certainly a memorable time to say the least. I remember watching them losing all those playoff games in the years before too. So lots of ups and downs. I played baseball as a kid as well, more than those other sports. So that was always my connection, but gotta love the Sox. Yeah.
And I'm gonna also we talked about the Red Sox a bit. Can't leave the Patriots out of this though, obviously. Tom Brady,
Yeah.
you guys for the first year, won a championship down in Tampa Bay. What are your thoughts when Tom Brady initially left? Where were you at with that?
Ah, man, I felt a twinge of heartbreak, but you know what? I think it was mostly because, look, Brady was on the Patriots for 20 years. That was most of my life with any consciousness of football. In fact, I remember in elementary school, I had a Bledsoe jersey for a hot second, and man, that hasn't been relevant for quite a while. So, felt a little sad to have seen him go. I had a feeling it wasn't really his choice. I think there were some back office things going on, but honestly, I think I speak for a lot of Bostonians. We're just glad he got to win again. It was kind of nice watching him get out there and do his thing. And I know Tom's been a controversial figure for a host of reasons in the last few years, but glad to see him keep going.
Do you feel like there's a decent future coming with the Patriots? You guys had Cam Newton. I don't know if you paid attention to the team at all last year. Didn't go too great, and I'm a big Cam Newton fan because he used to play for Carolina Panthers.
Of course.
So, did you watch it all last season, and what do you see the future of the team being?
Yeah, I kind of came and went last season. I didn't watch too religiously or spend too much time. I don't know what's happening right now, to be honest with you. I'm glad they re-signed Cam Newton. I think he had a tough year. Obviously, the rest of the team has been rebuilt as well. But, Edelman just retired as well. He was one of the most reliable targets out there. So I don't really know what the plan looks like this year coming, but got to have faith in Bill Belichick. He looks evil, but I think there's an evil genius behind those dull eyes.
Totally agree with you, man. I am a fan of greatness, and I think Bill, what he's been with Bill at the Patriots for the last, like you mentioned, 20 plus years, tons of championships, tons of winning seasons, tons of Hall of Fame players. I mean, you really can't hate on that. So I was also happy to see Brady win a championship down there, but I will say it did feel kind of different to see him in those colors this year. You know what I'm saying? But we'll see what happens going forward with the Patriots, man. I'm a Cam Newton fan, so hopefully you guys will figure it out. I think the Celtics are on the up and up. I like Jason Tatum a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I like Marcus Smart a lot. I think he's a great player. Kemba, you guys have a squad, and then Brad Stevens obviously is an amazing coach as well. So
been great. I watched the Celtics, I think, take down the Bucks a few weeks back in an evening game, and you know what? They looked pretty sharp out there. That gave me a rise. So I'm with you. Yeah. And you know what? Pandemic time, again, it's been a strange time of year. Gave me more opportunity to watch a little sports. Definitely got to get more into the NBA. So you know what? Enjoyed the Celtics. Enjoyed watching some of that. Let's see where things go. Always something.
Okay. And then, Curt, also one thing I want to mention, I know, man, you talked about you have a pretty cool trip coming up. You're heading out to Alaska. I've never been to Alaska. I'm assuming this is your first time going as well?
You're right. Yeah. The last frontier. Exactly.
And so what do you guys plan on doing out there?
Yeah, so going with just one friend of mine, we're going to fly out to Anchorage and then do basically a little bit of hiking, exploring in a few areas. So mostly national parks, those environs. So we'll rent a car, we'll head down to Seward, probably a few hour drive out of Anchorage. We'll check out Kenai Fjords National Park there. Again, keep referencing this odd pandemic year, but one of the upsides for me has been getting to explore different state and national parks around the country. So really enjoyed those. Excited to see some in that part of the world too. So Kenai Fjords, do a little bit of sea kayaking, hopefully see a few creatures out there as well. And then we're going to drive up north to Denali and do a few days of day hiking. We're not going to camp out, don't have the cold weather equipment, but we'll certainly get our fill of snow and ice and maybe catch a peek at a grizzly bear or two. Hopefully not too close, but we'll keep the drama to a minimum. But looking forward to that trip, and I think it'll be a nice escape as well from this virtual world we've been in for a while to get off the grid a little bit and see a few things in 3 dimensions.
No doubt, man. I actually took my first trip to a national park. I went to Zion in October. Beautiful, super beautiful out there. My first time. Was able to also go to the Grand Canyon as well. So I think at the point, pandemic has given folks a reason to really reconnect to nature and kind of get outside more. So super glad you're making that trip. Can't wait to hear about it. Maybe one day I will decide to go to Alaska as well. It's not currently on my list, but based on your review, maybe it will end up being on my list once you guys get back.
Hey, I'll give you the full download. And hey, good news is also, don't need a passport to get there quite yet. So.
All right, so Curt, man, while we're here, we talked a bit about what you got coming up, talked a bit about Boston sports, which are really important, but everybody's here to hear your story, Curt, you know what I'm saying? Clearly you're home now, but you haven't always rocked the ball this great. There's definitely a story to this. So can you take us back, man? Take us back way before 2014 when you had, a fresh head of hair, whether that was flowing hair, whether that was some other kind of look. Take us back then, Curt, and kind of transport and tell me what kind of hair you had back then, say 2010, 2012-ish, and what your hair meant to you during that time.
Man, good question. So, when I was a little younger, getting out of high school into college, had a full head of hair, had a lot of hair, in fact, kept the faith and was not quite, I wouldn't call it like a Jufro, but I let things get pretty long for a little while there. So yeah, had a full head. And in fact, if you want, I can pull up a couple pictures here as well.
Dude, I would love to.
Let me take you back to young Curt, just getting out of high school into college there. You can see had some locks going on there for a while. What did it mean to me? Honestly, not too much. I didn't think too much about it. I didn't spend too much time quaffing it or taking care of it. Really was something I think I took for granted. But, I'll tell you, I never really noticed my hair thinning or never paid much attention to it. Didn't really, see myself in the mirror. But I remember it was 2010. So I was a junior in college. My cousin was a year older than me, same school, and was graduating. So my family came up with that. We were having a dinner at a hotel at a banquet hall or something like that some night. And I remember my grandfather was walking around or something like that, my dad's dad, and remarked to me, Curt, you're looking kind of thin on top. What's going on there? To which I said, what do you mean? Isn't baldness transmitted from the maternal grandfather's side? And, like I said, my mom's dad had a full head of hair. What's going on? And he said, oh, that was a toupee, right?
No.
I never knew that. I never knew. I never looked. I never asked. And, he passed when I was like a few years before that. Didn't see him all that often. So probably I was below head level anyway all those years. Yeah. So never thought to look or notice. And that was kind of like the moment, like, oh, and things thinned out from there a little bit.
So you at the time, you again had no clue you were thinning, because obviously maybe you're not really like looking in the mirror like this. As far as you could tell, you were fine until your grandfather pointed out this day.
I'll back that up a little bit.
Okay.
For sure, I can recall, and this is a nice little walk down memory lane here. For the couple years before that, shampooing my hair in the shower and feeling a lot of it come out and wondering if that was normal, stuff like that. So, I think I was conscious of it, but it wasn't really something that preoccupied me or that, I felt really self-conscious about. That's what I would say at the time.
Curt, that's pretty cool, man, because many of the guys I've talked to, a lot of those guys that are going through that or noticing it themselves, they're the main ones beating themselves up. So you actually kind of noticed it, but didn't really offend you much. And you weren't really getting other people in your life mentioning it until that time that you can recall with your grandpa?
that was kind of like the wake up call for me. That was the watershed moment. And you know what? Maybe it was just hearing it from somebody who I trusted, or whose opinion I valued, or just hearing it that directly from somebody. But from that point, yeah, definitely that was something I started to see. Watching the hairline recede, and
Yep.
watching the spot get a little bigger right there, and becoming a little more conscious of that. And yeah, I think it certainly put me on a different path after that point. That was
Did
kind of a turning
you
point.
was it kind of a both thing? You were kind of thinning here and here, or was it one or the other?
Yeah, but I would say most noticeably thinning in the front, but also in the back up
Okay.
there as well, on top.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is happening, Curt. Your grandpa kind of called you out here. Was this in front of other people? So the other people here, or was it more of like a one-on-one thing?
No, it was at the table with everybody else, but it wasn't like he stood up and made this announcement. This was like a passing comment. I mean, I didn't really care, honestly. I was more surprised that, wow, I don't have baldness protection, and I guess I do need to start thinking about this. That was more what jumped to mind for me. Yeah.
Okay. So now that it's kind of on your radar now, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about, okay, I need to wear more hats and try to hide it? Are you thinking about products to use to try to make sure you can regrow it back? Or are you ready to accept it? What's going through your head at this time?
It's funny you mentioned that. So I did a couple things pretty soon after. Was one, oddly enough, I started using product in my hair to try to make it look fuller in front, to make it stand up more, to add a little more volume there, to maybe the thinking wasn't to mask the baldness as much as to just try something different, but that entered the equation. And then I think in the couple years after, I did wear a lot of hats actually, which I'm sure ironically accelerated the loss of even more hair up top there. But I definitely did lean into that a little bit. So I had a pretty terrible collection of large brim baseball caps, to be honest with you. And the good news is I didn't pay for many of them. A lot of them were giveaways or things like that. But yeah, I think that entered my consciousness a little bit. And I wasn't still. I was aware, of course, of products like Rogaine or Propecia or prescriptions or things like this that men can use to either regrow their hair or to stop hair loss. And I think there were two things that came to mind for me. One was I didn't really want to have to deal with these products. On the one hand, I didn't want to have to feel attached to rubbing Rogaine in my hair, knowing that it would be impermanent and that it's only so effective for so long. And of course, Propecia, finasteride, these other medications, things like this, they have side effects. I'm aware of those. Those are pretty well known.
Mhm.
I honestly just wasn't that. I didn't feel like keeping whatever hair I had left was important enough for me to make that sacrifice to myself in other ways.
Okay.
So that was kind of it. I think my mother was maybe more concerned, and she would try to give me like biotin supplements or
Yeah.
things to rub on the hair or herbal remedies, things like this, which honestly I think they just smelled bad and I didn't use them often enough, and it wasn't my motivation, so I didn't adhere so well to it. Yeah.
So, Kurt, you immediately kind of knew none of these products were going to be worth it for you. So I'm assuming during this time when you were trying the different shampoos, you weren't going to use the hair restoration products. I'm assuming you kept seeing your hair kind of get thinner and thinner.
Yeah, I did, certainly in photographs that kept being the case.
Mhm.
And I think for me it wasn't that I decided already that I would never use these products or they wouldn't work, but maybe I was just kind of kicking the can on that, thinking,
Yeah.
if or when I really care, I need to do something about it, I'll look into it then. But I think eventually, obviously, got to a tipping point. Yeah.
So outside of your family, were you seeing friends or girls, guys, anybody else like kind of in your circle, peers, actually ever saying anything about your hair, or were the hats kind of keeping you undercover for a while?
The hats kept things covered. I honestly abandoned the hats, after a little while, and just looked pretty thin up top there for a while. No one really said anything to me, but it became clear quickly enough that it wasn't working. It wasn't winning me points. That was becoming pretty obvious. Yeah.
Okay. So as this is going on, when do you recall the first time you thought, maybe I could shave it off?
Uh, it's a good question. I think I can. You mentioned before it's been since 2014 that I was doing this. I remember it was July day, and I don't know exactly what had precipitated the change or my decision to go forward with this, but I think I probably had a conversation with a friend of mine. In fact, I know I did. So I was talking to my friend Andrew. I was living in Germany at the time. I was chatting
Okay.
with my friend Andrew in New York, And he was also, I think, he had recently started shaving his head. That is what had happened. It was something that he had decided to embrace as well. And so we were talking about that a little bit. And I think that planted the seed in my head. Like, you know what? Maybe it's time to give this a shot. And what really brought me over the edge and kind of guided me down the path was, honestly, I think we'll come back to this a little later in this chat. It was this notion of empowerment, right? It was taking control over what I looked like, over my destiny, of not having to worry about how do I look to somebody else, of just owning the fact and the process, not having to be beholden to products or to things like this for the rest of my life, and not denying the fact that you know what, this is a look that is more acceptable now than it's ever been before. Even in 2014, it was a little different. I think today it's still another ball game altogether in the best possible way. But yeah, I remember, I think, having that conversation. So went to the drugstore and bought an $8 rechargeable clipper. Got my roommate and said, you know what, let's do this tomorrow. And she said, okay, I'll do it. And probably somewhere buried, I've got a picture of when it happened, the before and after. Didn't find it for this conversation, but that was kind of it. I think it was chatting with a couple of people I trusted, and then realizing that taking control of the situation, and also creating a new look for myself, almost a
Yeah.
new persona in a way. Obviously, I'm not changing who I am in any material way inside, but it was metaphorically a fresh start and a fresh outlook. And I think people greeted me differently and saw me differently after too, in a very good way. Yeah.
So let's talk about that a bit, Curt. Well, one thing I want to say is I totally agree with you in terms of reinventing yourself a bit. You know what I'm saying? One of my friends has a quote. He says, all the greats reinvent themselves at some point. So for having the opportunity to go, from the fro look, longer hair, to a very thinning look, and then having that confidence to say, hey, like this new look, I'm going to really embrace. I'm going to have a whole new set of confidence with this. And then walking into that, I think that's a big deal. But then what I really want to hear more about, man, I want to hear about how people, like you said, were kind of approaching you or seeing you now that you had this new look. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, of course, initially you get for the first week or so, like, whoa, man, looks good, or you look different, or looking fresh, or this was right after Breaking Bad had just wrapped up too. So you
Hey,
were like,
nice.
Heisenberg, oh yeah. And I even had like the goatee going too at the time. I figured I'd grow out the facial hair to go with the clean top as well. So it was a positive reception. It was different. It was attention grabbing. And I think people also, again, have to interview them maybe to get the real answer, the real scoop. But my perception is that people saw the fact that I had made this almost, you can always grow your hair back, fine, but kind of a one-way decision. It's a one-way door. And I think that indicated a sense of confidence and empowerment. And I think people perceived that and took that in, not just from how I looked, but also the act of, clearly, here's someone who made this decision to embrace this thing and isn't waffling or in denial about what's going on, and in fact is going to really take charge of it and build around that rather than kind of compromise in any way.
So Curt, you were getting this amazing feedback, but did you feel the day that you cut your hair, did you feel like, hey, this looks good immediately too? Was that the way you thought about it? Or did it take, that positive, kind of reinforcement for you to be like, okay, this feels good? Or did it feel still weird for a little while?
It felt weird for a little while, definitely an adjustment process, but I think for me, it was days, not weeks. It was not very
Okay.
long. And I think getting that feedback and that positive reinforcement was a good thing as well. Yeah. It was funny too. Even before I shaved it, also, I remember I think I remember my last haircut that I paid for. I remarked offhand to the salon. I can't remember what they're called now. I guess the hairdresser, right? It's been a while, man. It's been a while. And she'd mentioned, even before I'd gone and taken the plunge, I think I jokingly said, yeah, it's getting a little thin on top, huh? And she said, you've got a great shaped head. You should consider doing it. It would look good on you. It's like, huh, interesting. That was another thing that sort of planted the seed for me. But I guess the point is, I think getting that positive feedback and reinforcement, even before I took the plunge, made that transition easier. But yeah, it was a combination, I think, of me knowing I felt better, of having made a change in my life that made me feel good and empowered, and then hearing that feedback too made a real difference. Yeah.
So Curt, that's funny, man, because a lot of the guys I've talked to, their barber or hairdresser or whatever, they actually do the opposite. You know, they're trying to convince the person to not come home because that's kind of part of their revenue stream, right? If when you finally come home and go bald, you may be not coming back to the barbershop to pay that hairdresser anymore. So the fact that yours could keep it real and say, hey, Curt, like you may look good doing this and kind of throw you that alley. I think that's super special because I think we have a lot of hairdressers out here who are kind of convincing guys to hold on for their selfish reasons. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that at all. Yeah, I think the reasons are pretty obvious and are pretty selfish too. Maybe I got lucky.
Yeah.
You know, this was not, to be honest, somebody who I'd even seen before, right? This is not like
Okay.
somebody with whom I had really had a relationship. And it was, not too long after I'd moved to Germany from the US. So, growing up, one man cut my hair for, like 15 years, basically straight. We had nice chats in the chair. And then after I moved away, didn't quite have that same relationship pull trying to hold me back. But I think didn't hurt in my case. Not surprised to hear it from others. I think got to keep things in perspective though, and remember what their motivation really is too.
Mm-hmm. And Curt, and you being in Germany and now having this new look, did you feel any kind of way about like when you actually prepared to come back to the States, whenever that was going to be? Were you like, okay, this is people back home may have not seen me with this new look? How did you feel about that? Or were you, by the time you came back, you were so comfortable in your new look that it wasn't anything you thought about?
Hadn't thought too much about it, but you know what? I loved it. I loved coming back to visit. I loved the shock that people expressed. I loved the shock value. I enjoyed the attention to some degree. It was mostly positive too. It was good. I enjoyed that feeling. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, let's get more into your grooming routine here, Curt. So you said when you first initially saved it, you went to the barbershop and you just grabbed, or when you went to the store, you just grabbed was it an electric shaver to do your first one?
Yeah, it was like an electric clipper. Yeah.
Okay. And after that, I'm assuming, you decided, again, you weren't gonna go to the barbershop anymore. So how did you decide what products you were gonna start to grab to now maintain your new look?
At that time, quite honestly, it was definitely dollars and cents motivated. That was really the thought process behind it. Yeah, kind of penny wise and pound foolish to a certain degree, given that, if you're paying $50, once a month or more to get your hair cut, just make the investment silly. But you know what? I used that cheap, crappy set of rechargeable clippers for quite a while. I used to keep it to a slightly longer, not full bald length in certain parts of my head, in fact. So like a millimeter or two in a couple areas. So I had people, help me get the hairline figured out for a little while. Eventually decided that was just really silly. So, you went through a couple of different electric clippers and things like that, and also used a razor and shaving cream from time to time as well to go full bald.
Yeah.
What I've tended to find is that, I don't necessarily prefer the feeling of the complete skin on top. Just for me, sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. I kind of like having just almost a little residual stubble in certain areas, just kind of a comfort thing, if nothing else. And you know what? It's like having a 5 o'clock shadow. It's broadcast just like enough kind of casual indifference, but to still keep going there. So my grooming routine these days is I do shave occasionally up there, but I tend to use a zero gap plug-in electric clipper now. So it's called the Balding Clipper. I really like this device. Plugs in the wall, powerful motor. It's set to basically cut down to the skin pretty much without actually shaving your head fully down there. It's a good tool. I enjoy doing that. But I'm happy to expand more on that. And if you want, I can talk. Go ahead. Yeah.
Does it take you how long at this point does it take you to kind of shave? Are you knocking this out relatively quickly? And also, how often are you shaving?
Great question. So I would say probably about twice a week. I do it most of the time. How long does it take? Less than 5 minutes.
Nice.
At this point. Oh yeah, for sure. Doesn't take long. Yep.
So I think that's been one of the issues with me, man. Having to shave so frequently was something that I was not prepared for when I shaved my head, because I was one of those guys who would like see bald men at the barbershop, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, you have a bald head. Like, it takes no time to do that. Get out of the way. Not realizing, like, no, these guys probably she's having to shave his head more than I'm having to go to the barbershop weekly. So that was a surprise to me. And then now, even to this day, I'm kind of still going in between the razor and the electric razor, trying to decide which one is best for me. So sounds pretty cool for you to have found one already, and also one that seems to be saving you some time.
It's been efficient for sure. And hey, won't lie, right? I spent time in the shower with soap, with shaving cream, with shampoo, with conditioner, trying to find the right way to get the razor to glide correctly too. doing it by hand that way definitely takes longer. That is part of the equation to some degree as well. But it's one of those things with practice, like with anything, you do it with your eyes shut, right?
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
What I hear about next, Curt, is how did you feel about, as you made the transition to going bald, did you feel like you needed to change your style at all? Or did your style relatively remain the same?
I think that's a good question. I used the opportunity. I don't know if I made a conscious decision to change my style at that moment in time, but well, either way, conscious or not, yeah, I decided to up the wardrobe game a little bit. I decided to get things a little bit cleaner, to take better care of myself. Again, it's an opportunity to, I think, as you put it, half jokingly, I know, come home,
Yeah.
right? It's really all about getting to re-embrace yourself. I spent a long time, I think, just deciding not to care about my appearance that much. It's an opportunity to reinvent the whole package. So really, yeah, decided to do that. The thing that I really did was, again, I remember, I think it was my friend in New York who had mentioned offhand, some comment along the lines of, if you're gonna shave your head, if you're gonna go full bald, especially if you don't have facial hair, extra important from looking fresh and I think looking healthy to exercise, to hit the gym, to make sure that you take care of yourself so you don't lose the features and there's nothing else there. That was a seed that got planted in my mind around the time when I finally did go full ball for the first time. And it was a few months later that I really decided to take the plunge and get actually serious about getting in shape and exercising diligently, losing a bunch of weight and getting clothes that fit better and really overhauling things for myself. So I think there's a definite tie there between the
Yeah.
wardrobe and the fashion, but also taking better care of myself and my appearance too. That was the big change.
Oh man, so that's a really cool insight, man, because I haven't had the opportunity to really talk to many guys about how them shaving or coming home has actually affected the other areas of life, specifically fitness. And for me, Curt, fitness is a huge thing in my life. And but to your point, though, a lot of it came as I decided to come home. I personally felt like because I lost my hair, I needed to find other ways to kind of make up for my hair not being up here, whether it's going to be bigger biceps, whether it's going to be a six pack. I needed something to make up for the lost hair. And I think you bring up a really good point in that. Like, it also just encourages you to want to take more care of yourself. And whether that is a style thing, because definitely for me, I started dressing a lot more like, I guess, grown and sexy, I'd say. I started wearing more turtlenecks, feeling more comfortable wearing more suits, whether it was the fedora hat, all these kind of things that maybe weren't part of my style prior to, I definitely started to pick up as I came home and kind of embraced the new look.
You always do look fresh there, Kenny, I have to say. Looking fresh today too. It's working for you.
My God.
Yeah, I think for me, I wouldn't say necessarily that, yes, the moment I shaved my head was the moment that I decided to get serious about getting in shape. But I think what you said is completely true, right? I wouldn't say I made that conscious connection, at least not at the beginning, but you're 100% right. I think there was this notion, and that continues to some degree today, that if I'm not going to have, a coiffed head of hair up here, one, who needs it? I don't miss it, but I think there is some seed that gets planted to try to make up for it in other ways. So yeah, I thought about that too. It's been a good motivating factor for me. It's also made me look and feel a whole lot better in every other part of my life too. So I couldn't be happier with it. Yeah.
My man, my man. All right, Curt, before we get into the lightning round here, as I mentioned a bit earlier, everybody that comes on to the Bald to Bold miniseries, we have to make sure they have a fresh shaved bald. And the only way to do that is we do what we like to call the bald check. All right. So right now, Curt, I need you to show the people, show off the new bald that you got right now. And let's make sure it's fresh, man.
Let's do this. Let me get a little closer to the camera for you here.
Yes, sir.
Here's the slick right there. Yeah, that's what we got today.
Yes, sir. My man, my man.
Little shine. That's the key.
Official.
Oh man.
All right, man. So, Curt, we're going to get to the lightning round next, man. The lightning round, just an opportunity for me to ask you a few questions. And I want you to think of the first answer that comes to your head and let the people know. First question I got for you here, bro, is going to be, if you think through all of your favorite grooming products, whether that's beard grooming products, whether that's like cologne, whether that's shaving products, what would you say is the product you couldn't go without, the product that you absolutely would have to have?
Oh man, great question. I'm gonna kick the can on this one a little bit, but and give you this answer, which is, man, that clipper that I use a lot of the time, it's my go-to tool. It works so well. I'm happy with it. It's really saves me a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I feel fresh and clean and just ready to greet the day after I go ahead and use that sucker. So I think that's number one. Yeah, number two answer is facial moisturizer as well. That's something that, I think really in just the last couple of years, certainly during the pandemic, and since I've been spending a little more time thinking about my appearance, I've started to use moisturizer and take better care of my skin in a way that I kind of neglected when I was younger. I've enjoyed some of the products I've used. I'm still looking for the perfect one, of course, but yeah, I like to do that again. Keeps me feeling a little fresher and a little better too. So gotta keep things looking good.
All right, next question, Curt. If you had to think through all of the amazing and well accomplished bald men that the world has ever seen, I mean, there's a ton of them. If you had to pick the top three most iconic bald men, who would you say those three guys were?
Oh man, good question, huh? Well, I think the low hanging fruit here are, Jason Statham, right? That's been his look for quite a while. Kind of that 5 o'clock shadow everywhere. I like Bruce Willis as well, and in fact, I think there's a good example of someone who went ahead and embraced it over time. Right? Used to have that hair, went with that fresh new persona. Yeah. As for number three, Michael Jordan. Easy answer. Yeah.
Jordan.
Yep. Easy.
Yeah,
Easy.
absolutely. Every time I ask this question, Jordan always pops up, man. I think and somebody also mentioned to me one time, they were like, it's funny, like when Jordan went bald, but it wasn't like, oh, nobody was ever like, oh, Michael Jordan is bald. It's like, it's just Michael Jordan. It wasn't like a thing, like nobody cared. It's like, it's Michael Jordan. I think when you have that kind of stature in whatever industry you may be in, it doesn't matter what you do. Like you're just going to be known to be, this stalwart in your category. So that was, I think, something that Jordan had going for him for sure.
No doubt.
Man, okay. So we talked about hats a bit earlier, and we just how important hats become, especially when you're kind of going through that hair loss process. Today, for many bald men, a hat is really the only option, and when it comes to like adding some kind of variety to your look on top. So, Curt, if you had to say, what is your favorite or kind of go-to hat? What kind of hat would you say that is?
Great question. The answer is depends on the season. So
Ooh,
yeah, I no longer, hats are certainly an accessory to some degree. They're also very functional for me nowadays. So in the summer, in the hot sun, gotta keep things covered up top. That matters more than it ever used to before. So summertime, I'm usually going with kind of a trucker hat these days. I
okay.
like that mesh, cool in the back, works great for me. Wintertime, I've got a whole beanie collection now. I've got a whole drawer full of them. I've got like 4 or 5 different colors of the Carhartt watch cap that come on
Yeah.
top there. Good indoors, good outdoors. Got to keep things bottled up. Yeah.
Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. The beanies definitely a go-to of mine too, man. So I feel you on that for sure.
Oh man, yeah, I love them.
So, all right, Curt, we're getting into some maybe a bit more, serious questions. But one, obviously you've been through the hair loss journey, so you have some good advice to give to the people here. So, Curt, if you knew there was somebody watching right now who is absolutely going through that like hair loss process, was kind of down bad, struggling with it, going through maybe a little bit of anxiety, trying to hide
Hmm.
it, what would be the advice, from your experience? What would be the advice that you would give them today?
Good question. I'll reach back to what I said earlier, which is, again, first of all, do it. Take the plunge. It's not a scary thing at all. But what I talked about earlier was that the reception I got from people was not only positive, but I think it really did come with this feeling of, man, here's somebody who is empowered and who's confident and who's made this decision to not deny what's going on, but to embrace it and to really capitalize on it. People see that. I think people understand that. I don't underestimate that response that you can invoke or get from other people when they see you. Just do it. Don't feel shy about it. The other thing I'll say is, you know what? Taking a shower with a bald head in the morning, it feels great. It's like getting a massage every day. It's so good. Freaking love it. So, you know what? There's so many benefits to go with it too. And also your shampoo budget's gonna just plummet. You'll have so much cash left over. So take the plunge, do it. You're gonna look better than you think. It's going to make people think that you are even more confident And it really is a positive overall. Do it.
I love Curt that he's giving us all the benefits today, all the benefits of being bald. Curt's just kind of throwing them out there. So you guys make sure you hear what he's saying here. Do
I'm not getting paid for this, guys. I promise. I promise.
And I like what you said there too, Curt. I think it's important for guys to understand. Sometimes in life, you really just got to control what you can control, right? And to Curt's point earlier here is, hey, like, you can control your faith when it comes to what's going on with your head. You can decide to say, let me take control of this and, be empowered, or you can allow that to control you by continuing to try to run around and use products that aren't, likely aren't going to work or going to require you to use them every single day for the rest of your life. You're kind of losing control of your time there. You're kind of losing control of your schedule, and now you're having to, you're kind of slave to some of these products. But to Curt's point, if you can just embrace it and you can't just take control of it, that is, I think, the best route to go. And obviously the Come Home brand here is here to help you with that. And obviously, like, when you see a smooth guy like Curt telling you this, why would you not want to listen? Like, you know what I'm saying? Why would you not want to listen here?
After my heart, Kenny, man, oh man. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head too. And yeah, I'll say this too. I think when it comes to meeting ladies or people who you might want to see in a context like that, uh, look, some people don't prefer the ball look. Some people see that and get turned off by it. But you know what? I'd rather know immediately. I'd rather not talk to those people anyway. It is an incredibly powerful litmus test. And everybody you ask would rather see somebody who's empowered and who's got the look rather than somebody who's got a few tumbleweeds hanging on there. 100%. 100%. So you might try to hold back on that. But man, I think it's just, it's the right thing to do. So don't deny it. Changes things a little bit, but it's going to make the outcome better. It does.
And so Curt's preaching right now, because I know there's many of men right now, especially guys watching who are still going through the struggle, who may meet women or, whoever your partner may be, when you're going out dating and you're feeling nervous where you have to wear a hat to cover, your receding hairline or cover your bald spot. And now you're kind of being inauthentic to that person you're trying to date or trying to impress. And now you have to continue to hide this about yourself until you finally feel comfortable kind of being your true version of yourself. That's too much stress, honestly. Let's be real. That's a lot of stress. And nobody wants somebody that's kind of hiding, who they really are, especially when you're on the dating scene these days. So Curt is preaching. It's a lot easier to just kind of accept it, be yourself, and let that person make that decision first. Just trying to kind of pull some kind of trick on it. And Curt, we call that hat fishing. When you're kind of wearing the hat and you're trying to, you don't want to
Man, I love it. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are some really wise words from my guy right there. Some really wise words. Curt, the very last question here gets a little bit deeper, man. And this is a bit more kind of to the overall brand kind of purpose here for Come Home. The brand motto here is to embrace your natural evolution. For many of us, as we start to lose our hair, we're getting kind of older, we're maturing, we're understanding more about what it means to be a man in different scenarios, whether that's school, work, family, relationships, whatever that may be. Curt, can you tell us a little bit about what it means to you? What does manhood mean to you? What does it mean to be a man, especially as you continue to get older? What are the things that you're learning more about yourself, specifically when it comes to what it means to actually be a man?
That's more than a little bit deeper, I think.
Yeah,
that's a real question. I'm gonna just tackle this from a couple angles, and we'll see where we end up. But I think for me, being a man or manliness is not. It's not about your trappings or your conquests or how big or loud or bold or brash you can be. I think that should go without saying at this point for most people. It doesn't always, but I think being a man is about exuding a confidence, a quiet competence as well, of having a sense of responsibility and ownership of yourself. But as I've gotten older and as I've learned more about myself, I've begun to realize that what adds value and essence to my life is really the relationships I build with others. And the way to do that is to think of others too, and not just yourself. So for me, I think manliness is doing not always what's easy for you, not always what is selfish or what would get you the most out of whatever situation it is. I think it's being willing to sacrifice yourself for other people, to do something now that might help somebody else now too. And maybe it'll come back to you later, right? I think karma is a real thing. I think if you give it all away, it will come back to you. And I think doing that without hesitating and with total openness, honesty, and I think charity is the most important thing. So
Nice.
we can talk about this for hours. I
Yeah.
don't have a philosophy written out in front of me here, but let's leave it at that. I think it's all about selflessness, humility, but also emotional honesty.
Yep. Yeah. So Kurt, you touched on some great things there. I think one thing to think about is you mentioned the sense of sacrifice,
Mm,
the sense of, selflessness. I think there was, at least in the past, I think, the propaganda that we were being fed, whether it's from movies, music, just culture in general, was that, men needed to be very, dominating, need to have this idea of like, I need to win. I need to overpower my competition. I need to overpower in every sense of the word. And I think that gets to your point a bit about having too much self-interest. Like when you always feel the need to dominate something, you're not really worried about others. There's really a very little sense of care of others, and it's all about how can I win this, how can I overpower, how can I dominate this. But when you get to your point, when you start to understand that, hey, like there is more to winning, and a lot of that means allowing others in my space to succeed,
mm.
lifting and supporting others as well. That is the total opposite of some of the things that I saw growing up, as a man. So as I continue to build this brand and as I continue to mature, I've been learning a lot about what it means to a man. A lot of those things tie into what you've just mentioned, whether it's sacrifice, selflessness, being a better brother, being a better husband, being a better wife, being a better coworker. All those things I think come across when I think about what it means to be a man. How can you continue to give to others and lift up others, and kind of avoid some of the things that we've learned kind of in the past?
Well said. I've got nothing to add. I think I'm right with you there, and I will say that I agree. It has been, I think, that has been a transformational journey throughout my life as well. We're similar in age, and I think we can both agree that yeah, the portrayals of what is a man in media in society has evolved, and I think for the better.
Yeah,
People are
absolutely.
multifaceted and maybe a little more nuanced than we always used to think they were. It's good to keep that in mind.
My man, my man. So, Kurt, dude, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Normally, at the end of Kurt, we normally will ask our guests to give their social media, but as I understand, Kurt, you're not really big on social media. Let's just talk about that. Instagram is not your thing.
Instagram is not my thing. I've got an account out there. It's pretty long dormant. Haven't touched it in a little while. Tell you what, though, I'll tell you what I've told other people. If you want to find me on social media, if you need to make contact, my LinkedIn is right out there,
Awesome.
and that's a good way to grab a hold of me. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, Kurt, we will leave Kurt's LinkedIn somewhere in the bio of this. So, if you ever decide you want to reach out to Kurt, learn more about Alaska, talk Boston sports, talk Come Home, talk more about his the balding clipper they uses to stay so fresh. Definitely feel free to reach out to him. Dude, again, Kurt, thank you so much for spending your time today, man. It's been a blessing to talk about everything from your hair loss journey to Boston sports and to what it really means to be a man.
Yeah, Kenny, thanks for having me. It's been my pleasure, and it's a pleasure to share my story and my experience too. For anyone who watches this, I think have the confidence that you're in fantastic company and that you're doing the best thing you can for yourself. 100%.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in here. And as Kurt said earlier, whenever in doubt, just come home. We'll see you guys later. Till next time.